Hey guys, welcome back. So now we're getting into the conclusion of Flashpoint Beyond. And this one is kind of mind-blowing because with how this conclusion is set up, it's like it's starting off a number of other stories that I just can't wait to see. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so for this one, we jump right back in, with Rip Hunter making his way to stop Bruce from attempting to save his father, which in itself is a process that is jeopardizing the divine continuum. And we get more information on this in a clearer picture when Rip Hunter arrives here and he tells Bruce that he gets it, he's lost people too, but with Bruce manipulating hypertime, the risk is far too great for Bruce to be taking just to keep his father alive. And with how this is done, we kind of brush through this and jump back and forth between Bruce and Thomas Wayne, but I want to take a minute and explain exactly what Bruce did, or better yet what he's doing, that's causing everything to go crazy. Because through the course of this event, we've been fed the information out of order and also in bits and pieces, so I want to do a quick recap before we just fly through this conclusion that really feels more like a springboard into more Flashpoint events that are yet to come, as well as a bit of a Doomsday clock continues type of thing that's going on too, but we'll get to that. But as far as doing a quick recap for what Bruce did, this all really starts from Flashpoint Beyond issue 5, when we had seen that Bruce initially had met with Ra's al Ghul, who had given him Thomas Wayne's ashes after Thomas Wayne was shot by Darkseid's Omega beams. But in addition to Bruce getting Thomas's ashes, Ra's had given him a ton of information that had been collected by the Time Masters, which included details about the snow globe and Janie Slater's watch, but this was all information that Ra's had collected after going in the Batcave and reading Korvac's journal, which Bruce had received from Rorschach in Doomsday Clock issue 3, which for Ra's al Ghul, after reading this journal, this is what brought him to the point of showing all this information to Bruce, with Ra's going further to express that he's doing this because of the importance of family. But this is what caused Bruce to pursue the snow globe and Janie Slater's watch, which both were imbued with chronal energy, connected to Dr. Manhattan, that transformed them into temporal talismans capable of capturing and containing the Flashpoint. So effectively, Bruce is using both of these items that are saturated in chronal energy to borrow the power of Dr. Manhattan, with the chronal energy still being connected to Dr. Manhattan. But with Bruce getting the bulk of this information from Ra's, he knew that together these two items could contain the Flashpoint, as well that they both were in the possession of the Time Masters. But even still, Bruce himself, he still needed the help of Marionette and Mime, who are the only people who can point out and identify Janie Slater's watch. Which is why we had seen Bruce in Flashpoint issue 0 bring Marionette and Mime with him when he had broken into the Time Master's lab. But with Bruce setting this in motion, we come to find out that he had effectively stolen Flashpoint from Hypertime and placed it within the snow globe while using Janie Slater's watch to stabilize it. And this is effectively what caused Thomas Wayne to return in the Flashpoint universe. But it also brought about the return of Eobard Thawne, which is something that Prime Earth Barry Allen had picked up right away. And this time around, Barry made his way to the Batcave a lot faster than what we had seen in The Button. But also at this time, Bruce had mentioned that he had already set in place contingencies so that in the event that Eobard Thawne would return, Bruce wouldn't catch another devastating 1-minute beatdown, which to this day, in my opinion, still holds the record as one of the fastest, most condensed L's that Batman has caught. And we come to find out at this point that he's learned from it, because when he started the process of using the snow globe to contain the Flashpoint universe and catch Thomas Wayne in there, he knew there's a possibility of Thawne returning with modified versions of Mr. Freeze's weapons set to mimic Captain Cold's Absolute Zero gun. But with Barry picking up the return of Eobard Thawne, instead of telling Bruce he'd be there in a minute, he got there immediately. But with Barry checking on Bruce and soon after leaving, Bruce did not inform Barry that he was the cause of this disturbance in time. And also, like we had seen, Corky Baxter, who had also made his way to the Batcave, he had warned Bruce about what he was doing. And not only by threatening Bruce about Rip Hunter ripping Bruce a new one, as if, but also Corky had told Bruce that the bigger threat wasn't so much about Bruce stealing the snow globe and the watch from the Time Masters, but the bigger concern was that the Time Masters had stolen the snow globe to protect the divine continuum from Dr. Manhattan. So for Bruce stealing both of these items and putting them to use, it was pretty much like Bruce had put a target on his back for Dr. Manhattan to come looking for him. So now at this point in time, the events that are taking place around Thomas Wayne, they're causing a huge instability on Bruce's end, because with Thomas Wayne rejecting the Flashpoint timeline, as well as the secret of Flashpoint Martha, who effectively is the Flashpoint Joker, this complicates the situation even further by giving Thomas an opportunity to ultimately reject the timeline, with Martha having her own time sphere that would allow her and Thomas to go back in time and make sure that they died instead of Bruce. But Rip tells Bruce that they don't really have the time for Thomas to accept Flashpoint because the globe isn't stable enough to hold Flashpoint while Thomas is fighting it. And Rip tells Bruce that it's pretty much like he's trying to hold a tornado in a jelly jar. But Bruce isn't going to let Rip Hunter or Corky Baxter stop him, because for one, he doesn't really like these guys, and he sees the Time Masters, and especially Rip Hunter, coming off as cockier than they should be, since they know every detail about people's lives, and they hold this privileged information while saying that they usually can't share any of it, because it's their mission to protect history and not interfere. And with how this is done, you can look at it on one hand like Bruce is being selfish in saving his father, or you can kind of hear Bruce out, because with him saving his father and using the means that are available, if this works, he's not only saving Thomas Wayne, but he's also saving the Flashpoint universe. So with that being the case, what makes what Bruce is doing any different than what the Time Masters have been doing? Because for the Time Masters, Bruce points out that the difference with them is usually they get to decide what's important and what's not. And on top of that, the Time Masters have never told anyone how they came to be in the first place. So for Bruce, he doesn't see the validation in their self-righteous opinion. So in this moment, this conversation quickly turns into a game of keep away, with Bruce buying time for the Flashpoint to stabilize. And it's from here where we go back into Flashpoint, with Martha asking Thomas to go with her into the time sphere to go back and make sure that they die instead of their son Bruce, so that they can quote unquote fix this broken universe regardless of who it kills. And really, with the way that Martha asks Thomas to do this, it appeals to what he's been working towards this whole time. So when she reaches for his hand and he takes it and she pulls him in for a kiss, he's kind of caught up in the moment, because she's also expressing to him that with doing this, going back in time and making sure that the two of them die to save their son, that this is her effectively seeing through her marriage vow till death do us part. And I think it's really those words that got Thomas in this moment, at least until he remembered all the people she killed. Because then his eyes opened up like, wait a minute. But when Thomas brings this up, Martha quickly hits him with a response that none of it will matter as soon as they quote unquote fix the timeline. But then it's here where this conversation is interrupted by Gilda Dent, who's come back with Dexter at gunpoint, telling Martha and Thomas to get on with it, while telling them that Harvey's supposed to be the monster and not her. And it's here where Martha gets inside of the time sphere, telling Thomas more or less like, you heard the ladies, we can send everyone to a better life, all we gotta do is flip this switch. While in the meantime, on Prime Earth, Corky Baxter throws his hat at Bruce, which is actually a real raccoon by the name of Crockett Raccoon, and it totally catches Bruce off guard, which then gives Rip the opportunity to take the snow globe from Bruce. And from here, Rip Hunter plans to release the Flashpoint and reintegrate it back into hypertime before the snow globe detonates and tangles the two timelines together, rewriting history with Bruce's grief. And just to be clear, if Rip does this, he's effectively killing Thomas Wayne. But from here, we then jump back to the Flashpoint universe, where Thomas Wayne has a decision to make. And the truth behind all of this is if Thomas goes back with Martha and makes sure that they die instead of Bruce, it's not going to fix the Flashpoint universe, and it's not going to undo the Flashpoint universe. And this is something we were shown not too long ago by Bonnie Baxter, because for every universe that we've ever seen in DC Comics that was created or destroyed, it exists forever in hypertime, with time and space being the two halves of the divine continuum. So even if a universe is destroyed, like the Flashpoint universe for example, it'll always exist in hypertime, which was how in this case Bruce was able to take it and place it within the snow globe. But for Thomas Wayne at this point, being told by Gilda and Martha to get inside the time sphere, he's then asked by Dexter if he does this, what'll happen to him? Will he die? And Thomas tells him that he won't die, he will just never have existed, which is what Thomas believes. But going by the information given by Bonnie Baxter and Rip Hunter, according to the divine continuum, Thomas Wayne will be causing the Flashpoint to break out of the snow globe and collide with the Prime Earth and timeline that would change everyone's history off of Bruce's grief instead of Barry's, which could potentially cause Dexter to become Two-Face instead of Harvey or Gilda. And it's here with Thomas, with him thinking all of this through, it's here where he realizes that going back and saving Bruce is not an option. It just won't work. And it's here where Thomas says we have to save the boy. This boy. Dexter. And initially Martha thinks that Thomas is trying to get her to choose Dexter over her Bruce, when the reality is, once again, saving Bruce isn't an option. But what they can do in this moment is save Dexter. But with Thomas leaping into action, Gilda detonates an explosive that knocks him away and destroys the time sphere. And right away Gilda starts letting off shots on Thomas, telling him that she's gonna delete people out of reality the old-fashioned way by killing him, and soon after him, Dexter. But then without warning, Martha jumps out from the dust. She takes the gun from Gilda and she takes her out, hitting Gilda with that control, alt, delete. And Martha admits that this is a moment that could be causing a bit of damage to the boy, but if we're keeping it honest, Dexter's had a lot of these moments. But just after this, they then make their way through the rubble and all the way up to the rooftop. And when they get up there, it starts to snow. And when this happens, we quickly find out that this is a sign of the snow globe stabilizing. And with seeing this, Rip Hunter, he stops from trying to return the Flashpoint to hypertime. But even with him seeing that Bruce's plan at work, he confronts Bruce about gambling the entire universe on his father accepting a world without him. And Bruce admits that yes, he did gamble the entire universe with this one, but even still he knew that the odds were in his favor because of what his father wrote in his letter, which for the most part was a letter from Thomas Wayne to his son Bruce, or really Earth Zero Bruce, with Thomas expressing that he really just wanted his son to be happy. But throughout this letter, Thomas had also mentioned that he was a man corrupted by his pain with too much blood on his hands to be called good. But things changed when he met Barry Allen, because for Thomas Wayne, through meeting Barry Allen, he learned that you can't only live for the ones that you lost, but you also have to live for the ones that you still have. But most importantly, in that letter, Thomas Wayne went on to say that if he got a second chance, that he would hope that he'd come to understand that. And really in its entirety, Flashpoint Beyond has been Thomas Wayne getting his second chance. And I mean, me personally, I don't see how Bruce could just brush over City of Bane or not really address it, but I could also see how Thomas's actions at the time were really him once again trying to make sure that Bruce was happy. But really all in all, Bruce was counting on Thomas to understand the concept of accepting his life and his world for what it is, which in the end, Thomas actually did. Then moving forward, we find what that acceptance looks like, with Martha Wayne being locked up in the Batcave for really what's her own protection, because most people think that she's dead. But on top of that, if anyone knew that she was alive, then they'd have to deal with the fact that she actually was the Clockwork Killer. So for me, I see Thomas locking her up in the Batcave as a form of protection for her, and perhaps even to stop her from killing even more people. Who knows? And in addition to this, we also see Dexter take on the title of Robin, which now officially makes him the Flashpoint Robin. And really it's from here in this conclusion where we're shown that the Flashpoint universe has a lot of things to come, with us seeing what appears to be the corpse of Eobard Thawne vibrating, teasing his return, the possible extinction of the Atlanteans after the death of Aquaman, Wonder Woman and the Amazons continuing to wage war, and all of this happening on the brink of a Kryptonian invasion, with millions of Kryptonians making their way to Earth, which really with these few examples, they're like the main things that are coming up for the Flashpoint universe. But with everything we've seen throughout this series, there's a lot of things building up and Thomas is going to be pretty busy for quite some time. And the same can be said for the Time Masters, because when we head back to their time lab, we find that their time capsules had failed, causing the 13 to be sent back in time, with history building around them. And from the 13, you have Betsy Ross, the Golden Age Mr. Miracle, Molly Pitcher, the Golden Age Legionnaire, Ladybug, Quiz Kid, Salem the Witch Girl, the Golden Age Aquaman, Cherry Bomb, the Harley Quinn's son, John Henry Jr., Judy Garrick, and the Golden Age Red Lantern. But on top of this, they also have the issue of Nostalgia, who's also known as Cleopatra Pack, who we then jump to right here on her 16th birthday. And it's pretty huge seeing her here because this is the manifestation of what Dr. Manhattan had predicted in Doomsday Clock issue 12. Because at the time, we had seen in that issue when Dr. Manhattan was describing the different events across time, and he had witnessed March 13th, 1993, when he had seen a young Cleopatra Pack standing outside of the prison that Ozymandias was in. And this is something that the young orphan would do every single day because she was obsessed with the rise and the fall of Ozymandias. But with seeing this, Dr. Manhattan had also expressed that on her 16th birthday, with a fully grown Bubastis at her side, Miss Pack will call herself Nostalgia. Life doesn't stop, but it needs love. To where from there, Dr. Manhattan goes on to talk about Marionette and Mime and about their son's future. But it's here the conclusion of Flashpoint Beyond where we go to Cleopatra's 16th birthday with a full-grown Bubastis at her side, just like Dr. Manhattan had said, with her also taking on the name of Nostalgia. But this time around, in addition to the information that we were given by Dr. Manhattan, we see Nostalgia tinkering with what appears to be an intrinsic field subtractor with the intention of learning how to get the attention of a god. And in this brief moment that we're shown, her attempt seems to be unsuccessful, but even still she expresses that they'll have to find the Watchman another way. Which, in my opinion, is quite a way to conclude this series. Because really I was expecting more of a World War Flashpoint kind of thing going on, with the Kryptonian invasion and Wonder Woman and the Flashpoint version of Suicide Squad, but instead with us not getting that, and this ending being like a springboard into a number of other things popping off, on one hand I'm a little bummed that we didn't get it, but with everything else that we got instead, I'm super excited for what's to come. Because on top of everything that we got here, I also want to point out that Jeff Johns had mentioned in a recent interview with CBR.com that the quote-unquote Watchman that Nostalgia is looking for is actually Clark Dreberg, who we had seen at the very last issue of Doomsday Clock. So yeah, this may be the conclusion of Flashpoint Beyond, but this story is far from over, and I can't wait to see where all of this goes. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support, and for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below so we can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.